Long before the rise of the Persian Empire, before the Achaemenids or the famous kings of Persepolis, another civilization flourished in the lands that today belong to Iran. In the southwestern lowlands of the region, a society emerged that would become one of the earliest urban cultures of the ancient Near East. This was the land known in ancient history as Elam. Here, between powerful rivers descending from the mountains and a harsh climate shaped by intense heat and limited rainfall, early human communities developed agricultural systems, irrigation networks, and eventually complex cities. In this video, we will explore the emergence of the Elamite city-states, the environmental conditions that shaped their society, the origins of their people, and the archaeological discoveries that reveal the birth of one of the earliest civilizations of ancient Iran. The earliest region of present-day Iran to reach a level of urban civilization and social stratification was the area that later became known as Khuzestan, referred to in ancient sources by its biblical name, Elam. Geographically, this region lies outside the Iranian plateau proper. Instead, it forms a low alluvial plain, surrounded by mountains on three sides and crossed by rivers that descend from the highlands toward the Persian Gulf. Three major rivers shape the landscape: the Karkha River, known in antiquity by several names, including the Assyrian Yuknu and the Greek Choasbes; the Karun River, called Ulai in Assyrian sources and Ulius in Greek; and the Ab-i-Diz River, historically known as the Coprates. The Ab-i-Diz flowed roughly parallel to the Karkha but closer to the center of the plain, eventually emptying into the Karun. Over centuries, the courses of these rivers changed repeatedly as they crossed the lowlands. Their shifting paths created fertile alluvial soils but also demanded human adaptation. To manage water resources, ancient communities dug artificial canals extending from these rivers into the surrounding arid zones. These canals served as hydraulic connections that made agriculture possible in an otherwise dry landscape. Closer to the ancient shoreline, the plain was once covered with shallow freshwater lakes and salty lagoons filled with reeds, which gradually evolved into marshlands. In antiquity, the coastline itself lay farther north than it does today. The climate of Elam was extreme but manageable. Winters were relatively mild, with temperatures rarely dropping below freezing. Summers, however, could be extraordinarily hot, sometimes reaching 60 degrees Celsius. Rainfall was scarce, but the presence of rivers meant that irrigation agriculture could flourish. These environmental conditions would play a decisive role in shaping the development of early Elamite society. The climate and ecological conditions of Elam closely resembled those of Sumer, located in the lower valley of the Euphrates. Both regions were fertile river plains surrounded by harsher landscapes, and both depended heavily on irrigation agriculture. Because of these similarities, the historical development of Elam and Sumer followed parallel patterns and occurred at roughly the same time. Yet despite their geographic proximity, the two regions were separated by a difficult landscape of marshes and deserts. As a result, the usual route connecting Elam to Sumer did not pass directly across the plain. Instead, travelers and traders followed a path along the foothills to the northwest, or climbed through the mountains along the Karkha Valley. From there, they crossed mountain passes toward the region of present-day al-Badra, then continued into the Tigris Valley, often through the Diyala Valley near modern Baghdad, before reaching the Sumerian settlements along the lower Euphrates. Through these routes, Elam and Sumer maintained contact, influencing one another culturally and economically throughout early history. Before any civilization could arise in Elam, the plain first had to be populated. Human groups descending from the surrounding highlands gradually settled in the region, bringing with them the knowledge necessary to cultivate the land and control river waters. Archaeological evidence suggests that the earliest inhabitants appeared in a side valley at the site of Ali Kosh, dating to the beginning of the 7th millennium BCE. These early communities were goat herders who practiced rudimentary agriculture. They were related to the earliest pastoral agricultural groups living in the more northern regions of the Zagros Mountains. However, during the 6th millennium BCE, archaeologists observe a change in burial customs, suggesting that a new population may have arrived. The communities of this later period, represented by sites such as Jaui and Jafarabad, show strong similarities to the peoples of contemporary Sumer. These societies had already begun to use artificial irrigation, an innovation that would prove crucial for the development of agriculture in the region. It is even possible that some of these tribes later migrated westward and helped colonize the lower Euphrates Valley, contributing to the population that would eventually become the Sumerians. A major turning point occurred in the second half of the 4th millennium BCE. At this time, a large semi-urban Chalcolithic community emerged at the site of Susa, located near a riverbed or artificial canal between the Karkha and the Ab-i-Diz. Susa would eventually become one of the most important cities in the ancient Near East. Yet even before this settlement expanded, the region was probably already inhabited by another ethnic group. These people may have been the Elamites proper, who later dominated the area during historical periods from the 3rd to the 1st millennium BCE. Their language was completely unrelated to Sumerian, suggesting a distinct cultural identity. The ethnic composition of the Iranian plateau during the earliest millennia remains largely uncertain. Scholars propose that different linguistic groups may have inhabited various regions. Some tribes in the northwest may have belonged to the Northeast Caucasian linguistic family, while groups in the southeast may have spoken Proto-Dravidian languages. There may also have been peoples who spoke languages completely unrelated to any known linguistic family, similar to the case of Sumerian in Mesopotamia or Burushaski, a language still spoken today in the mountains between Pakistan and Afghanistan. Other tribes may have spoken languages similar to Kassite or Elamite. Elamite itself was spoken in Elam, and possibly across parts of central and southern Iran, from at least the 3rd or 4th millennium BCE until the 1st millennium BCE, and perhaps even later. Some evidence suggests that the Elamites may have had dark skin, and that their language may have retained distant connections with Proto-Dravidian, the ancestor of languages spoken today in southern India and parts of Baluchistan. One important point must be emphasized. During this early period, no tribe on the Iranian plateau spoke Indo-European languages. Proto-Indo-European was used in the 4th and early 3rd millennia BCE only by certain late Neolithic communities in southeastern Europe. The Indo-Iranian languages, sometimes called Aryan languages, would only spread into Iran and northern India much later. When the first Indo-European speakers eventually reached Iran, they encountered populations whose languages remain largely unknown today. One of these languages was almost certainly Elamite. It may have arrived earlier from the east, possibly replacing earlier linguistic traditions in the plains of the Karkha and Karun. Rather than violent displacement, this process likely involved gradual cultural and demographic fusion between populations. Early Elamite culture belonged to the wider family of painted pottery cultures characteristic of the Chalcolithic world. These ceramics were more than simple household objects. They represented an artistic expression of how ancient humans interpreted the natural world. Through rhythmic patterns inspired by animals, plants, and human life, artisans translated emotional and symbolic impressions of nature into decorative designs. Importantly, this creativity was not limited to specialized artists. Instead, it formed part of the general productive activity of the community. The most significant artistic objects were therefore everyday items such as painted pottery and likely textiles. Many of these objects were also placed in burials, intended to accompany the dead into the afterlife. The archaeological site of Susa is particularly renowned for producing some of the finest examples of painted pottery from this early period. The local style features geometrically stylized images of waterfowl, hunting dogs, cereal spikes, palm leaves. These vessels were handmade and are commonly found in burial contexts belonging to the Susa A period, around 3500 BCE. Their elegance and symbolic decoration reveal a sophisticated aesthetic tradition already present in early Elamite society. True urbanization, however, came later. During the Susa C period, after 3000 BCE, archaeological evidence suggests that Elam underwent what historians call an urban revolution. This transformation occurred when agricultural production began to exceed immediate subsistence needs. Once communities could produce a surplus of food, the constant threat of famine decreased. This allowed society to develop specialized roles. Farmers continued cultivating the land, while other individuals became craftsmen, priests, administrators, soldiers, judges. The emergence of these specialized functions marked the birth of complex urban society. By the Susa D period, during the first half and middle of the 3rd millennium BCE, Elamite society had clearly developed social stratification. Evidence for this comes from numerous clay tablets written in a local hieroglyphic script. These tablets appear to belong to temple archives dealing with economic and administrative matters. Archaeologists have also discovered cylinder seals, which likely served as markers of property or magical protection for goods. The engravings on these seals depict fascinating scenes: rows of weavers or potters engaged in their crafts, alongside hybrid mythological creatures, part human and part animal. These objects reveal a society that had developed not only administrative institutions but also a rich symbolic and mythological imagination. Unfortunately, our understanding of early Elam remains incomplete. Excavations at Susa were not always conducted according to modern scientific standards, meaning that valuable information may have been lost. Moreover, the earliest Elamite hieroglyphic texts have not yet been deciphered. As a result, much of what we know about the earliest Elamite states of the 3rd millennium BCE comes indirectly from neighboring civilizations. Historical documents from Sumer and Akkad, written in cuneiform script, mention Elamite rulers and record interactions between these societies. Through these external sources, and through archaeology, we can begin to reconstruct the early history of this ancient civilization. The emergence of the Elamite city-states represents one of the earliest chapters in the history of Iran and the ancient Near East. From small pastoral communities in the Zagros foothills to the development of irrigation agriculture, painted pottery traditions, and eventually urban societies centered on Susa, Elam evolved into a complex and stratified civilization. Although many aspects of its language, culture, and origins remain mysterious, the Elamites played a fundamental role in the broader history of the ancient Near East. They stood at the crossroads between Mesopotamia and the Iranian world, interacting with Sumerians, Akkadians, and later civilizations. And while much remains to be discovered, the story of Elam reminds us that the roots of civilization in Iran stretch back thousands of years, long before the empires that would later dominate history. The first cities of this region were already rising on the plains of Elam.